Our first topic for term 2 is the basic concepts of hardware, grade 10 level. Types of hardware, we're looking at input, output, memory, storage, processing, and communication. Now let's start with input devices. An input device allows the user to interact directly with the computer. The devices give data and instructions to the computer. Some of these input devices include your keyboard, your mouse, which is referred to as a pointing device, touch screens, touchpads. We also have your game controller, cameras, microphones, video capture devices. We have biometric devices. We'll talk more about that as we move along. Now looking at the first device, which is your keyboard. The physical layout of a keyboard is similar in most devices, but changes for smaller devices like your smartphones. Your smartphones, we have a smaller keypad. They have touch screens, keyboards. Now, if you look at the advantages of your keyboard, the full keyboard allows easier typing. So most computers come with a keyboard that is supplied, and people are using these keyboards to enter data. They need very little training. We have skilled typists that can enter data very quickly through what we call touch typing, where there's no need to look at the keyboards, but can remember where the keys are and type faster without looking at the keyboard. Your specialist keyboards, like your ergonomically designed keyboard. This keyboard is designed for comfort, ease of use. It's to prevent health injuries. Then we have gaming keyboards where the keys are for specific purposes. Disadvantages, that depends on the keyboard. It is easy to make mistakes when typing in data. If you're looking at your smartphone keyboards there or keypads, they are smaller. They're prone to more mistakes than your full keyboard. If you can't touch type, then typing becomes time consuming. Disabled people often find keyboards difficult to use. Excessive use can lead to health problems such as repetitive strain injury, RSI. Now, keyboards can be adapted for disability. We have key guards, which are small plates that allow users with a disability to rest their hands on the keyboard without pressing any keys. You also have on-screen or virtual keyboards displayed on a user's screen and is used with a gesture or gesture control pointers or joysticks. We'll discuss this further on. We have Braille keyboards, and these keyboards have Braille lettering. So people that are blind or visually impaired can use this keyboard to feel the lettering. Makes it easier for them to work with. Now your mouse or your pointing device, the standard mouse comes with a computer, but we have other pointing devices or input devices that work similar to a mouse. Now the advantages is it's ideal for desktop and laptop computers. Most computer users are familiar with mouse and require little training. It works well in conjunction with a keyboard for data entry, and it is usually supplied as part of a new computer system. So that's an advantage. The disadvantage is you need a flat surface in order to be able to operate your mouse. It has to have a flat surface. They speak about an older style mouse, which have roller balls that can become clogged with grease and grime. That's the older mouse. Excessive use can lead to health problems such as repetitive strain injury. So if you're thinking about using a mouse, when you use a mouse often for long periods, you'll find that you have problems with your wrist. These are all RSI injuries. If the battery wears out on a wireless mouse, then it cannot be used and it has to be replaced. So a disadvantage of a wireless mouse is the need to replace the batteries. Now, if we're looking at head-mounted pointers, there's an example of a head-mounted pointer. So this is for people with disability. If they cannot use their hands, they have a head-mounted pointer and use a pointer to work with it on the screen. It is controlled by switches to simulate the function of a mouse. These switches can be on hand or foot pads or pedals, or they can be sensors that detect eye movement or facial expressions. It all depends on the type of head-mounted pointer that you have. Gesture recognition devices, there are more than one. There are many types of devices. If you look at this, it allows your hand movements, and the hand movements are read, and you can work with the computer. So they can also recognize head and eye movements or read lips or sign language to input information into a computer. There's another handheld gesture devices, playing a game, but you have the devices in your hand, and movement of your hand is reflected on the screen, or is read and interpreted for the screen, for movement on the screen. Then we have sip and puff devices. There's an example here. One example of a sip and puff device, a switch that operates the computer when users breathe into, that is puffing, or through sipping special tubes. Special software is used to interpret the sips and the puffs. So these devices all work with special software. We have a mouse trackball. There's a mouse, a normal mouse, but this is a mouse with a trackball. A stationary ball that can be spun in different directions to move the mouse. This allows the users to move the mouse by making very small hand gestures. Unlike a normal mouse where you can move it around a larger area, and this, instead of moving the mouse, you move the ball. That allows you the same movement as a full mouse. The next one is your touch screen. Now in your touch screen, there's a touch screen here. Most modern smartphones and tablets rely exclusively on touch screens. There are also some notebooks and computers that have touch screens. Computers with touch screens will be more expensive than your standard computers. The touch screens can, or when they are available, replace your mouse, because you can point on the touch screen instead of using your mouse pointer. The point of sale systems refer to the place where a sales transaction is completed. For example, at cash registers in retail stores, shops, we have restaurants, hair salons. The point of sale system allows waitresses to process orders. Now, most of these systems have touch screens, allowing it easier to work with. And this has to be controlled using a variety of software, hardware and software options. Now, the advantage is it's easy to use. You don't need much training. There are no extra devices such as a mouse needed because of the touch screen. Software can alter the screen while it is being used. So with touch screen, you can have software to alter your screen, make it easier to access depending on the requirement of the screen, what it is being used for, of the device, the requirement of the device. The software can be altered. Can make use of finger gestures to make sophisticated actions such as zooming in and selecting. So by pinching with your fingers, or your hand and your finger and your thumb, you can zoom in or zoom out by expanding. Excellent for selecting and controlling applications that have been designed with a touch screen in mind. Disadvantage is it is not suitable for inputting large amounts of data. A standard keyboard is better suited for large amounts of data. It is not very accurate. Selecting detailed objects can be difficult with fingers, whereas a mouse may make it easier. And it is tiring to use for long periods. Less useful as a control input to a standard computer that makes the use of the mouse and keyboard combination. So if you have a mouse and keyboard combination, then the purpose of a touch screen is not as significant because you can work with the mouse and keyboard. So it depends on the application and what it is being used for. In terms of disability, entering commands by voice, entering commands by pressing the controls, with a mouth stick, head stick, or stylus. So these are all the options for people with disability. There's voice, there's use of the mouth stick, head stick, stylus. Through variations in the device's touch sensor technology, such as resistive touchscreens. Now, there's different types of touchscreens will allow for different disabilities. Your resistive touchscreen relies on mechanical pressure. So it works with pressure. So whatever you're using a stylus, it works with mechanical pressure. Your capacitive relies on human touch. So these screens only work with human touch. You have infrared touch screens that uses light emitting diodes and sensors that are embedded like your ATM. They're working with infrared. Then you have the surface acoustic waves touch screens. They generate ultrasound waves that travel over the panel surface. So these screens generate ultrasound waves. So that is the different types of touch screens that you have. We'll discuss this again further down. Your tablet or your pen input device, there's an example here. Tablets are accurate, and when combined with the interactive pens, allow artists to create art as if they were using a pen and paper. So it allows for drawing on using a pen, an interactive pen. You can draw on the tablet. Now, a Wacom tablet is a graphics tablet that is generally used in the graphics design industry or by digital artists. So it allows a person to draw by hand, capturing an image or graphics in digital form. And that can be displayed on your monitor. Advantages are tablets are easy to handle. It is much more natural to draw diagrams with a pencil type implement that is a stylus rather than a mouse. So it's better to draw with a stylus than a mouse. It has a greater level of accuracy using a pen. The disadvantage is that it has weaker capabilities than a laptop or a desktop. The screen is smaller in size. It has fewer ports. There's no fixed keyboard. So a tablet has these disadvantages in terms of you cannot add in a full keyboard. So it's restrictive and the number of ports are less. And tablets are devices that can be used by people without hand function. This is done using a stylus or a splint that can be inserted into the vertical holder or strapped to the wrist. So you can use the wrist movements. Your touchpad, this is what you find on your laptop. By moving your fingers across the touchpad, you can move your mouse pointer on the screen. It is useful for laptops when using a mouse isn't practical. So in this, find yourself in a situation where there is no space to use a mouse, then your touchpad is your best option. The pad's position is fixed in relation to the keyboard. Very short finger movements are required to move the cursor. Disadvantage, it takes practice and skill to control the position of the cursor using the touchpad. So it requires more practice than your mouse. Moist, sweaty, or callous fingers can disrupt the signals picked up by the sensors. Now, touchpads are useful to people who cannot hold a device such as a mouse in their hands, but can press on the touchpad with a finger or an eraser pointer. So this is for people with disabilities that cannot hold a mouse in the hand. The touchpad is a perfect option. Note, keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys are made up of a combination of keys. Now, some of the shortcuts that you have is that Control C to copy, Control V and to paste. There's also Control X to cut. And these are some of the keyboard shortcuts that you have. Trackballs, joysticks, touchpads, and light pens are similar to a mouse. This is a reminder. Your eraser pointer is a pointing device that looks like a joystick or pencil eraser head and sits between the G, H, and B keys. Now, this is found on some keyboards. You have an eraser pointer. When the eraser pointer is pushed in one direction, the cursor moves in the same direction. So you'll find it's normally in blue in color. If you may find it if you have it on your keyboard between the G, H, and B keys. Now we spoke about resistive touch screen, which works with pressure, and the capacitive touch screen that is working with the human touch. We have infrared that can be worked by either human touch stylus and have very high clarity. And the one that works with waves, right? Your surface acoustic wave technology provides better image clarity, resolution, and higher transmission of light. This technology has the longest lifespan and a quick response time. It recognizes the location, amount of pressure that is applied. Now, some other input devices are your game controllers. Most of you will be familiar with. They are bi-directional inputs as well as action buttons linked to specific actions in a game. Your camera, that's used for recording images, videos. You can use them for video conferencing. Your cameras also, you have your webcams as built into your laptops. Microphones allow you to record sound and interact with the computer using your voice. The computers have built-in microphones. You also have separate microphones you may purchase. Then we speak about video capture devices. They allow for live streaming or live video streaming. Now this device converts the video signals from your computer's output into a digital format your computer can recognize. You can install these video capture devices also between your gaming console and your computer. Your gaming console and your computer, there's an example of a device, this will capture your gaming. Scanners, there's an example of a scanner. They come in various sizes and shapes. Scanners allow you to scan pictures of pages, such as your photos or contracts, directly onto your computer. Some of your smartphones also have scanners, have an option to scan. Scanners are often packaged with an optical character recognition, OCR software. And OCR software converts the text on a picture to text that can be used in a word processing application. Now we're talking about text on a picture. We mean when you're scanning a document, which is normally in picture form, you scan a document and using OCR software, you can convert it to text. So that is conversion of scanned documents. The optical readers, optical readers are devices that can read from a physical object such as a QR code, barcode, or magnetic strip. So there's an item being scanned, there's a barcode here, and it's being scanned by a barcode reader. That's an optical reader. You also have QR codes that can be read. You are familiar with QR codes, you'll find them. You may have the application on your smartphone that can scan QR codes. Your biometric devices, these devices read data presented to a computer and compare it with saved data. Now, biometric devices include your fingerprint, your iris, your retina scanners, and these are not commonly used with desktop computers. Now, if we look at this example here, there's an area to scan your thumbprint. You have an option to scan your thumbprint, or you can enter a password. Now, some of your phones have, your smartphones have a fingerprint or thumbprint scanner, or your fingerprint scanner that will allow you access to a device if it matches the fingerprint in the database. Data collection devices, these are many devices, depending on what we are collecting. So data collection devices obtained directly from a location where an event or transaction takes place. It can collect data and send over a network. So data collection devices collect data and send over a network. Example of these devices are your barcode scanner. You also have your tablets that take restaurant orders. So there's examples of data collection devices that obtaining data and sending over a network. And that is as far as your input and output devices are, input devices are concerned. We'll stop at input devices and there's your activity. Our next section will be on output devices.